Hey guys, have you ever just wanted to play a video game in a genre that you really didn't care for? I didn't think so, but that was Hollow Knight for me.
So when are you gonna look at Metroid Prime 2?
Get the f*** out.
Time to dive into the games I own but haven't played yet. As I mentioned previously, I have a pretty big backlog, both in my physical collection and in I figured it was about time to make good on my promise to play through my backlog. But instead of continuing on the series that this O started on, because my middle name is Procrastination, I decided to look at a different game that is sort of in the same genre. So, Hollow Knight. I've had my eye on this game for a while, ever since it was nominated for Indie Game of the Year 2017, and now I have decided that it's time to play it 4 years later.
Yep, there I am.
Hollow Knight began development back in 2014 by Ari Gibson and William Pellin. They wanted to take Metroid, Zelda 2, Mega Man X, and Bugs and just smash it all together in a game. Together they formed the studio Team Cherry and wanted to focus on being able to engross players in the art and depth of the world of their game. They started out by trying to create the world in the game engine, but Gibson disliked it so much that he instead hand-drew the world and scanned it directly into the game's engine. He felt that this was the best way to create a vivid sense of where the player was so that they would never feel lost, but never have a clear sense of where they were headed at the same time, seamlessly becoming completely engaged in their environments. Originally, the game was slated for a PC and Wii U release, but since the Wii U had gingivitis, they decided to hold off until Nintendo actually released a successful console. Originally, Team Cherry wanted to release the Switch port fairly soon after the console's release in 2017 along with the PC version, but due to developmental issues, they had to hold back until 2018. During this time, they not only focused on the Switch port, but also DLC. From June 2017 to March of 2018, 4 free DLC packs were released, adding more bosses, patches, and whole new adventures for players. June 2018 hits the scene, and with it, we finally see the Switch port release, including not just the base game, but all those DLC packs as well. Near the end of that year, the Xbox One and PS4 would also get releases of the game, titled the Void Heart Edition. In my opinion though, the Switch version is the most interesting one. It's the only version where you can pick up a physical copy, and you get some pretty cool stuff for doing so, like an entire map of the game, and something rarer than a Karen admitting that she's wrong, a video game manual. Personally, I really like both of these inclusions, as a manual this day and age outside of some basic inserts is rare, and having a map to show just how huge the game really is actually pretty cool.
So, needless to say, I'll be looking at the Nintendo Switch version. I've been keeping up with the game ever since its development started on Kickstarter, and what better time to play it than 4 years after its release?
We play as a small bug wielding a nail, quarterly called by many simply as the Knight. We are on a quest for fame and fortune, but quickly get swept up into an adventure bigger than ourselves. This setup for the story is actually fairly typical for Metroidvanias, as it correlates directly with our own discovery of the game. When jumping into a Metroidvania, the player really never knows how big it truly is until the end of the adventure. Much like this correlation, the story goes much deeper than the community even knows at this point. After beating the game, I went back and dived into the lore. Afterwards, I sounded like a crazy conspiracy theorist who didn't even sound like he knew what he was talking about.
But I'm already a crazy person who doesn't know what he's talking about, so I'm going to try to give it as best a summary as I can without diving into any of the deep lore or anything like that.
As the Knight explores the riches of the kingdom of Hollow Nest, he discovers that an infection is turning all the bugs in the kingdom into a hive mind-like state. Long ago, the kingdom faced the exact same infection, and a being known as the Hollow Knight was sacrificed and sealed away to maintain the infection. However, the infection is now leaking out, and it's up to the Knight and another adventurer called Hornet to break the seals and halt the infection once again. That's probably the most basic version of the story to explain. There is much more, but honestly the best way to experience it is through the characters and the world building. And speaking of the world building, that has to be Hollow Knight's best attribute. The Kingdom of Hollow Nest is huge. Every nook and cranny feels alive, like a bug from this world would actually live there. Because of this impressive attention to detail in every area and aspect of the map, I never felt lost or confused where to head next.
Now, this is the point where Metroidvanias usually lose me. Sure, they have large and impressive maps, but I usually get lost in them because everything looks the same. Hollow Knight doesn't have this problem, because every area is special and unique, so it actually feels like the world is actually lived in.
The Kingdom of Hollow Nest is broken up into 16 different parts, and all of it feels seamlessly connected. The Forgotten Crossroads is the center point of the whole map, and it's really cool how everything is there from the beginning, you just need the proper upgrades to traverse it. Something like that is quite typical of Metroidvanias, but again, it works so well here because as you approach, say, Green Path, grass and moss begins to grow around you and overtake the path in front of you upon entering the area. So because of this, you're easily able to remember where you need to go next when you unlock a new upgrade. But moving on, in my opinion, the best of these areas is easily the City of Tears. My God, this place is just so full of atmosphere that when I first arrived here, I just stopped and was absorbed by Christopher Larkin's breathtaking score. But there's another area out there that has a mantis village right in the center of it all, and the mantis will attack you unrelentlessly until you defeat their lords in battle. That's just awesome and super raw when you think about it. Farther underneath Hollow Nest is the Deep Nest area. Deep Nest makes me uncomfortable. It's covered in webs, it's dark, and f***ing basic enemies you fight earlier in the game come back to life as a parsec spider creature thingy. Ugh.
It's okay. They can't hurt you.
So needless to say, I zipped through Deep Nest as quickly as possible. But again, being able to instill complete fear into me just from the environment is very impressive. So moving on to the Royal Waterways, these were interesting, but didn't have an impact on the story or game as a whole. It had easily the worst boss in the game. Oh, but it also had Dug Defender, so actually scratch that, this is the greatest area in the game. Kingdom's Edge had snow and another Hornet fight that I could easily live without. Crystal Peak was really cool. I'm not really sure why bugs would want to mine crystals, but it opened up some really fun level designs, and some really not so fun level designs.
And there's a lot of other areas to talk about, like the Ancient Basin or the Queen's Garden, but if I talk about all of them, we'll be here all day.
Much like in other Metroidvanias, you gain upgrades and power-ups throughout discovering the world of the game. One reason that I truly believe that Metroidvanias have stood the test of time is their abilities to directly correlate combat and level design while still feeling open and free. You need power-ups to traverse more of the world, but if you don't want to explore those areas, then you could totally skip those power-ups. I mean, I just need cheese and ham for my sandwich, forget bread. Hollow Knight breaks up its upgrades into two different categories. You have your soul powers, which include Vengeful Spirit, which lets you shoot a blast across the room, a Desolate Dive, which lets you shoot straight down and break flimsy floors beneath you, and Howling Race, which blasts any enemies that would be above you. All these can be upgraded along with your soul container, so you can hold much more soul to use these devastating powers, or heal more. Next is your physical abilities. These get stored in your inventory and usually require a cool trinket to let you perform said abilities. You have the Cloak, which lets you dash, the Mantis Claws to climb walls, the Crystal Heart to launch forward at a crazy fast speed, the Monarch Wings for a double jump, Ishma's Tears to swim in acid, and the Lumafly Lantern so you can see in dark areas like Deep Nest. Now, if I'm being honest, none of these physical abilities are anything new for Metroidvanias. It's all about the spell powers if you want something fresh and unique, and they really help you out if you use them in combat alongside your nail. Keeping within the genre, the Knight can also have his nail upgraded to be stronger, and if you find the nail masters throughout the kingdom, they will teach you their signature nail arts. The Cyclone Slash, Dash Slash, and Great Slash all help give the nail just a little bit more of a punch, but I rarely use them.
Yeah, while I may not be an Olympic Pro Gold medalist in Hollow Knight, I usually found that a good charm selection combined with the old hit and dodge old Dark Souls combo usually was enough for me to dispatch my enemies quite efficiently.
Charms are another unique aspect that Hollow Knight brings to the Metroidvania. All of these bring small upgrades to the Knight, such as making the nail longer, regenerating his health over time, giving you more soul, or even spawning baby knights for you. The only catch is that you have a certain amount of notches that will limit the amount of charms that you can have at a time.
Oh, there's always a catch. First that Pakistani timeshare, and now this.
This adds a unique spin for the player when losing a fight. Normally, when losing a fight in a game, you can sometimes bullshit your way out of being bad by saying it was the game's fault all along. But with the addition of the charms and only being able to hold a few at a time, instead of feeling like this bullshit is bullshit, it makes you feel that if you tweaked your charm loadout just a little bit, you'd have them the next attempt. That takes almost all the fault away from the bosses and the enemies, which is pretty impressive. Now, does that mean that all the bosses feel fair?
What do you think? It's a video game, not taxes.
Now it's time to talk about the part everyone loves, the bosses. There are 47 bosses throughout Hollow Knight. Boy, does it feel like there's 47 of them. Around almost every corner, it feels like there's a boss about to jump on you without you even knowing. But as I said, not all of them can be Dung Defender.
He's perfect. I mean, I got nothing else to say.
Some of these bosses were either let down stupidly hard or both. Some it just takes learning their patterns, some you can come back to once you've upgraded your stuff a little bit more, and some you just have to keep throwing yourself at them like you're throwing yourself up against a wall until it breaks. The Watcher Knights is easily one of my favorite boss fights in the game because of how creative they are, but holy crap do these feel unfair. You have no time to breathe with these guys, and you just have to hope that they didn't aggro you right out the gate, as continuously you have to fight 2 of them at a time. Trader Lord is another one that gave me a lot of trouble, mostly because of having to backtrack all the way through Queen's Garden, but luckily, thanks to one of the DLC packs, I was able to create a teleport area to travel back to the fight when I died. And speaking of dying, each time you get clobbered, it is up to you to go back and fight your shade. If you do, you can get your money back and you can use all your soul container. If not, your container stays broken and you lose all of your money. This led to some really frustrating moments in the game for me. Sometimes my shade would be left in a boss area and I'd have to go back and fight my shade and try and get back on my geo while fighting whatever giant baddie is crashing down upon me. Other times it'd be left in an area where I needed to have platforming skills of a god and I just wasn't up to the challenge. This created the need for some grinding early on, and I would be lying if I said that didn't frustrate me. However, once you play through the game, I feel like these annoyances will dwindle for you, but until then, us first-timers have to be ready to grind after dying and losing all of our geo. As I said earlier, Team Cherry released 4 packs of DLC for the game from 2017 to 2018. These range from all-out new bosses and quests to a simple patch. Hidden Dreams added some quality of life improvements along a new stag station, the game's fast travel system, and 2 whole new boss fights. One of these is an upgrade of Dung Defender, so obviously this is the amazing DLC. The Grim Trope is up next, and it added a whole new quest of the traveling circus that needs you to bring back some runaway circus guys and fight a cool new boss. Lifeblood added a reason for the Hive to exist, and some solid technical improvements for the game. And finally, Godmaster. This mode is just a boss rush.
And that was Hollow Knight. Even though the game had some pretty tough moments, it was still a very engaging and fun experience, and I just can't wait for that Dung Defender sequel to come out now.